Second meeting, Monday, June 10th, 1974. Ajaan Mahā Boowa began by asking the following question. Is there anything in particular that you would like to discuss today? When those in the room remained silent, he then spoke as follows. Sitting in meditation while listening to an explanation of Dhamma will greatly help to calm the citta. I shall therefore begin with an explanation of Dhamma, and while you are listening, please feel free to make use of whatever method of meditation you have practiced before. When the citta is calm, you will naturally receive the taste of Dhamma, each according to his own level of practice. The Buddhist religion which we profess today is the Dhamma to which the Buddha had attained. His name was Samanagotama. He searched for and practiced many ways which he saw would bring him to the attainment of the Satya Dhamma, truth, that he was seeking. The word Dhamma means the teaching of a Buddha, which is a new Dhamma and a new era that follows upon the enlightenment of each Buddha and the teaching which he gives to the world. Truly speaking, the real Dhamma is always in the world right from the beginning, but this real, original Dhamma is never touched by that which is conventional or mundane, sammati, even though it is always in contact with the heart. But although these forms of Dhamma are always present in the world, we lack the ability to see them. What sort of thing is Dhamma? There is Dhamma as cause and Dhamma as result. Because of this, people are led to think in all sorts of ways that have almost nothing to do with Dhamma or religion. The word sasana means teaching, the teaching which arose as the result of those practices done by the Buddha as he searched for knowledge and truth until he found it. Because he searched in the right way, he attained results which satisfied his heart. He then proclaimed this teaching to those people in the world who were suited to receive the sasana Dhamma, the training and teaching of Buddhism. Teaching Dhamma to a world full of blindness so that it would come to know the truth was very difficult for the Buddha. It was no light task. Before he proclaimed his teaching to the world, men already had various thoughts and ideas, the majority of which were contradictory to the Dhamma. Teaching was therefore very difficult, but being one of the great teachers of the world means taking a great burden on oneself. Very few people desire to become a Buddha because ordinary men, unlike Buddhas, do not want to shoulder the great burden of teaching the world. No one can teach the people of the world as correctly or as accurately as the Buddha did, so he was given the name the highest teacher in the world. There is no one comparable to the Buddha because he is superior to all human beings. His teaching is fully complete in both cause and effect. Nothing is missing from the teachings which he taught to all beings. With regards to Dhamma, he explained wholesome, kusala, and unwholesome, akusala, and neither wholesome nor unwholesome, abhyagata Dhamma. This Dhamma is Svakata Dhamma, Dhamma which is well explained. The essence of this Dhamma is in the Eightfold Path, which is the middle way. If we were to compare the middle way to food, its taste would be delicious, for it would not be too salty, too tasteless, or too spicy. If we were to compare it to clothes, it would be well cut and tailored to fit the person wearing it. It would not be like inexpensive clothes which are mass-produced. The teaching of Dhamma is therefore the middle way, which is appropriate in both its causes and its effects from the beginning to the end. Not only is Dhamma the middle way, but also the things that we depend on in the world. If we tried to do everything in the middle way, it would be something worth seeing, worth admiring, worth living in and making use of. Those men and women, monks and novices who practiced the Dhamma of the middle way would be lovely persons, worthy of respect. Both the world and the Dhamma would be cool and quiet, so it would be a good world to live in. There would be no complaining that the world is in trouble, or we are in trouble, or he is in trouble, as is heard at present. Everything is burning with trouble now, so we have practically no world left to live in. This is because people do not take into consideration the principles of Dhamma which are correct and good. A world divorced from Dhamma, that is, goodness, is therefore a world which is contrary to Dhamma. People are contrary to Dhamma, and this contrariness to Dhamma has the power to produce endless worry and confusion. As long as we refuse to see our faults and refuse to stop our opposition to Dhamma, this world will continue to experience dukkha. Magga means the path, which the Buddha declared using the principles of the middle way. It is therefore the only path which always leads straight and steadfastly to vimutti, freedom. It is never outdated and never has to be altered or changed in any way to keep up with changing situations and changing times. Even if all things should go on changing until they turn and turn about, the Dhamma of the middle way, Madhyama Dhamma, will still be the Dhamma which is always consistent. If we liken it to a medicine, it would be a medicine that doctors have already experimented with and proven the worth of, and which is being used to cure disease. All Dhammas have already been completely tried and proven by the Buddha, so there's no reason for doubting or being skeptical about them, for the proving of these Dhammas resulted in the enlightenment of the Buddha. Furthermore, all of the Buddha's disciples also attained the field of vimutti by means of these Dhammas in the same way. We have come together today to train our minds to be calm and cool. The normal state of the mind is such that it has no middle way. It continually tends to go to the extremes of thinking and imagining, so its moods are always in a state of confusion. Or, in other words, what the heart is used to and likes leads it away from what it should be doing. We must therefore make use of the Dhamma principles of the Buddha as a means to train the citta to be calm, and however much or little one does this, it will not be without results. Whoever makes use of any method of meditation, as, for example, paying attention to one's breath, anapanasati, or the repetition, parikamma, of Buddha, Dhammo, or Sangho, should have mindfulness to control the citta. The citta should not be allowed to wander, for if it does, you will not get good results, and the citta will not get calm. In the Dhamma it says, Natte zande parang sukhang, which means there is no happiness greater than peace. This shows that the citta must be peaceful and calm to attain happiness, so you should try to make it calm. The citta which is not calm will tend to be agitated continually, so even when it's asleep, it dreams of all sorts of things. If your citta thinks a lot, it will cause fantastic dreams and talking in your sleep. For when your sleep is not deep, dreaming will occur, whereas a deep sleep is a sleep without dreams. So train to make the citta calm down. Whether the citta becomes calm and to what degree will depend on the ability of each person. If the citta is very calm, there will be a great deal of happiness. This is the first step of the training. The value of the mind will then be apparent to you so that you can admire it at that time while it is peaceful, because there is nothing of greater value than a quiet mind. I would ask that you make your minds steadily overcome the difficulties and laziness which are things that usually overcome us the whole time. We believe that we cannot overcome them because we have seen their power, but if we think we are able to fight them, and if we really do fight them, then the time will arrive when we can overcome them. We hear of victories in regard to such things as sports, but with regard to kilesas, defilements, we only hear of giving in to them. Perhaps this is because we fall on our faces before the kilesas and let them walk all over our backs. The Buddha's religion shook the world because it was tested and proven by someone whose heart was pure. The enlightenment of the Buddha shook his heart. That is, it shook the kilesas in his heart, just as if the world itself were shaken. Even though we have never before seen or experienced any results from Buddhism, we will surprise ourselves when the citta becomes calm, because this initial training will greatly move the heart when the citta and Dhamma come together in a state of unreserved completeness. Religion, sasana, is not a trifling matter. It exists with every one of us. It is not just a thing of this person or that person, nor does it just belong to the Buddha. He taught us so that we would be good people and have worth appropriate to a human being. He taught that the virtue and value which comes from the religion is our own wealth, right up to the path, fruition, and nibbana. This lies within the reach of each Buddhist who resolves to practice. He can be one who possesses and savors the results of it endlessly. Unlike other forms of wealth that people crave, which are impermanent, anicca, unsatisfactory, dukkha, and not self, anatta, the wealth of Buddhism never runs out. Therefore, Buddhism belongs to each of us, and not only to this or that ethnic group, class, or caste. Questions and answers. First question. Man 1. What is the citta? Is it not attention? Answer. In the 4 ittibada, paths of accomplishment, citta is attention. When it is combined with recollecting, it becomes mindfulness, sati. The citta likes to go wherever it pleases, and in whatever the citta does, it is not afraid of doing wrong, nor is it afraid of danger. If mindfulness does not restrain it, it may stray and go for unchecked pleasure-seeking. To make an analogy, the citta is like an animal, and mindfulness is like the person who trains and controls the animal. If the citta which is possessed by kilesas is trained and controlled by mindfulness, it will slowly become disciplined, and the kilesas can then be eradicated. When it is also accompanied by wisdom, paññā, to investigate and extract the kilesas, the citta will become clearer and brighter. When the citta becomes brighter and brighter, you will discover that the citta is becoming more and more subtle, and that it has more strength and power. The citta can become pure through the practice of meditation, but you cannot understand the citta merely by reading books, for you can only come to know the real citta by practicing the way. Then you will gradually come to see the true nature of the citta a little more each time, until you see it clearly and all doubts vanish. Practice is therefore extremely important if you want to know the citta, because you can come to know the real citta absolutely clearly and eliminate all doubts only by means of practice. There is no other way in which you can know it. Second question, woman 1. People in England study Buddhism from books. They do not know that there is a citta, because Buddhism is not taught here according to the Satipatthana Sutta. The result is that people are led to understand that the citta is mindfulness and wisdom. I therefore think it necessary for Venerable Paññā to have Ajaan Mahā Boowa give us some understanding of the citta. Venerable Paññā to Ajaan Mahā Boowa in Thai. People in this country understand citta to mean thinking. They understand that the citta is divided into the forms of the citta which come from seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, and touching. In other words, consciousness, viññāna. Answer. That aspect of the citta which arises when something comes into contact with eyes, ears, nose, etc., and which knows and receives that contact is called consciousness, viññāna. It arises and ceases together with that contact. As for the citta that knows these things, it does not cease together with the consciousness when it ceases. It does not cease even though the body ceases, for it will go on and take rebirth in the future. There is no end to it as long as the sap of the heart, which is the kilesas and avidya, ignorance, remains in the heart. But when this sap of the kilesas has been removed from the heart, there is an end to continual becoming and birth, as happened with the Buddha and his Arahant disciples. Third question, man 1. This one who knows, which we call ourself, is this not atta, or is it anatta, not self? Answer. If we compare the one who knows with stairs, such as the ones used to reach this room, then we will have to take hold of them as self, and let go of each step one after the other until we reach this room, which is our goal. If at the beginning we do not cling to the self, we can go widely off course because we have no basis to hold on to. We have to make use of the self as the way which will lead us to the state of not clinging to self. Therefore, at this stage, we should not go thinking about self and not self, atta and anatta. We must at first make use of self before we can reach our goal. The questions of atta, anatta, and the citta will be dropped by itself, just as happened when we climbed the staircase until we reached this room, when the problem of us and the staircase vanished of its own accord. Fourth question, Man 2. When we compare the citta to the stairs, must we let go of the citta in the same way we let go of the stairs when we reach the last step? Answer. When we have trained the citta, we gain different levels, and we let go of each level until we reach the last step. It then stops by itself, and we do not have to force it. If one is going to do this, one must reach the level of super-mindfulness, mahasati, and super-wisdom, mahapanya, because this is the level which is suitable for letting go of the conventional world, sammati, in all its aspects. From that point on, there is no more attachment or clinging in the citta. Fifth question, Woman 2. What are some of the benefits of meditation? Answer. You become calm. The heart is cool, peaceful, completely rational, and self-controlled. You do not do anything following your desires that is contrary to reason. You will always consider what is good and what is bad, both for yourself and for others. It makes you become a person who does not feel the dukkha of gloominess always in your heart. The heart will have a basic principle and will not drift about aimlessly as it used to. It is like a man who has a job as his basic principle, or who has food and a house to live in and depend on. Such a person is not troubled. Sixth question, Woman 2. How do we train ourselves in meditation? Answer. You can use the method of anapanasati or the method of repeating buddho, dhammo, or sangho. It depends on the nature of each person. The various methods of meditation will all bring calm to the heart, and even if one uses the word death as the preparatory repetition, this is also training the heart, for it is important that the heart gets a feeling of sorrow and weariness of itself. It will then see the evil in those things which the heart clings to, things which one really likes. Why, when we train the citta, do we focus the citta on only this or that object? In focusing the citta to be on the breath, we should know the breath as it goes in and out at the nose all the time, but this is not a breathing exercise. This is like using bait to catch a fish. What you want to catch is the fish. Or, if we make a simile to the citta of someone who has not yet been trained, his citta will be scattered in various places, like a fish net which has been cast into the water and spreads out wide until one can no longer see what it looks like. If we want to know the citta, we will have to take hold of the leader, that is, the string on the net which one uses to draw it together. When we pull on the leader, the rest of the net comes together until we can see it and hold it in our hands. The citta is where we ourselves are. We are the owners of the citta, but we cannot force it to become whatever we want it to be. We assume that form, rupa, memory, sanya, feeling, vedana, thoughts, sankhara, and consciousness, vinyarna, are the citta, but in reality, these aggregates can all be separated from each other. We can begin to see this when we practice meditation. Then we will be able to promote the citta so that it improves. When we have practiced, we will gradually see that the citta is the lord of birth and death. If we make merit, practice generosity, guard our moral precepts, and practice meditation, we promote the citta so that it improves. It becomes brighter and is raised to a higher level. But if we follow our desires and are not afraid of demerit and unwholesomeness, the citta will do whatever it likes. Not being controlled, the citta will deteriorate and meet with nothing but dukkha. When we are downhearted and don't know what to do, we let go and are then besieged by dukkha even though we are aware of the problem. It is because people do not know how to change dukkha into happiness that we experience dukkha, and dukkha is just what we don't want. The citta that has been trained until it is freed from defilements, and therefore pure, must still depend on the aggregates while they remain alive. But the duty and work of one whose citta is pure will be only for the good of the world. This pure citta is called arahant or arahat. The person who is an arahant has a citta that is entirely pure in all respects. His citta is completely free from anything that can cause it to be born again. While he is still alive, it will encounter happiness which is entirely satisfying. When he dies, it has absolute bliss, and it has no dukkha, nor any involvement with the mundane, relative world, samvadi. Thus there is a saying of the Buddha which states, Nibbanang paramang sunyang, which means, Nibbana is entirely empty, empty of all dukkha. But it does not mean that when one has attained Nibbana there is nothing left, as the world understands emptiness to mean. But one also does not exist in the way that the world exists. In other words, the happiness of Nibbana is happiness specific to Nibbana without any of the mundane conventions. If the citta still wears the form of the aggregates when the defilements have been completely eradicated, it means that it has attained to freedom. Freedom, vimutti, and the mundane world, sammuti, are very different from each other. It is difficult to compare the world of sammuti, which has mundane conventions, with what has not, which is vimutti. Buddhism has the purpose of teaching us how to make our citta pure, so that we can experience the sublime happiness of vimutti. 7th question, Woman 3. Yesterday, Venerable Banyawato said we must use energy in practicing meditation. Today you are talking about recollecting, which concerns the brain. I understand, then, that citta means energy and brain. Is that correct? Venerable Banyawato to Ajaan Mahā Boowa, in Thai. 2 or 3 days ago I explained that we must use energy in meditation practice. I also explained that when we are too intense, the mind will be in turmoil, and that we must make a mental note of it. Answer. In learning about and practicing the Dhamma of the Buddha, we must gradually use more and more mindfulness and wisdom from the very first stage of the training until we reach the level of super-mindfulness, mahasati. We study and practice meditation because we want to make the citta calm, for the peaceful citta is of great worth. It's like when we wake up from a deep sleep. The citta is bright. But when we do not sleep soundly, or sleep badly and dream and talk in our sleep, then we wake up feeling dull and sleepy. In sound sleep, the citta drops into the state of pavanga, a state that the citta reverts to when undisturbed, the place of deep sleep where dreaming does not occur. After deep sleep, the aggregates are rested and energetic, and the citta is cheerful. By entering samadhi, the citta can become completely still and quiet. The heart is then always naturally happy and strong, so that in reading, thinking, or doing other jobs, the citta will be clear and relaxed. When thinking, it will be able to see through things more clearly than usual. Therefore, training the citta by way of either samadhi or wisdom in accordance with the principles of Buddhism is a good way to help us in our work. Contrary to what people generally understand, it does no harm to our livelihood. Those who think that it does are only nominally believers and know nothing about Buddhism. Therefore, in striving with perseverance so as to get results, we must use diligence and determination, but these must be used differently in different cases. If we want to attain calm, we must use determination to aim for a single spot. In other words, we must quell mental distractions. But if we are going to contemplate so as to know the Dhamma truths, we must use hard work and determination in observing and develop understanding in the Dhamma from various viewpoints. When we are aiming for the arising of wisdom, we must use hard work and determination in the investigation of causes and their effects in various ways. 8th question, Woman 4. If we are tired from working so that the mind is very distracted and dull, should we sleep or should we practice meditation? Answer. You should sleep, but this depends on circumstances. If it will help the citta to be calm and help you to sleep well, then you should also practice meditation. When you practice meditation until sleep comes, then the citta will be peaceful and the body can rest. So you should not stop using your usual method of practice if there is enough time to do it.